everybody. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am very excited to be here with my Not Crazy podcast co-host, best friend, and ex-wife, Lisa Kiner. Lisa, say hi.
Hi. I have to make sure my hand is in front of the camera. Hi.
Well, we are very excited to spend the next hour with you. Here's how this works. In the comments section, ask any question you want, anything about living with depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, mental illness, about your loved ones, about your experience. We will answer from our lived experience. And I got to tell you, here's the great thing about Gabe and Lisa. We disagree on everything. So you're going to get two perspectives on pretty much everything.
For the price of one. Yeah.
For the price of one. Now, there are a few things that we agree about. Lisa, what is the name of your favorite mental health book?
Oh, my favorite mental health book is Mental Illness is an Asshole by Gabe Howard. Perhaps you've heard of it. Available on GabeHoward.com.
Signed with free stickers.
Stickers.
And Lisa, we agree on another thing. What is your favorite mental health podcast?
The best of all the podcasts, which is Not Crazy. Yes. Going live every Tuesday.
The Not Crazy podcast it's a very cool show hosted by myself. Lisa co-hosts the show, and we just talk about all kinds of cool topics. This week's topic, which I think is a very cool topic, is about the decision to have children with bipolar disorder. Now, I live with bipolar disorder, and I decided not to have children because of it. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, then why would I listen to the show? It sounds like you've already made up your mind. And that's true. I did already make up my mind. But we have a very cool woman. Her name is Amy, and she made the decision to have children. She has 2 kids. She lives with bipolar disorder, and she she absolutely takes on what am I trying to say here?
She has children?
She has children and I don't. And we talk about all the pros and cons, the goods and bads. Lisa, what did you think of the show? You were there too.
Oh, I thought it was good. We haven't had a whole lot of episodes yet, but so far it was one of our best.
I love it when you have to tell people that it was the best. Isn't telling people something the best is like telling people that you're rich?
I should just tell people, well, every episode is the new best. No, Amy did a great job. She was very forthright. She was very honest, answered a lot of our questions. She was willing to put a lot of herself out there, answered a lot of very personal questions. So it was very gracious of her.
Well, we are very excited to be here. So I noticed that the questions are starting to pop in. Please, in the comment section, write out your question. And when you write out your question, it will pop up on the screen. Lisa will read it.
Okay.
We will answer it and discuss it. And that's how it's going to go. All right, Lisa, are you ready to get into the live questions? Mm-hmm. I feel like we should do a drum roll. Like, why don't we have music? We need music.
We have music, sort of. We have the theme from the podcast.
We can, but we'd have to hum it.
Well, it's not a perfect system, but you realize that's not the theme, right?
I know. It's
I think that's podcast. I was going to say, I think that might. Every time Gabe is asked to sing anything, he immediately sings the theme from Superman. We don't know why. Everything, always Superman. I think that's actually what you were singing.
I do.
But remind me, and next time we do this, I'll have the music.
Well, everybody, please check out the podcast at psychcentral.com/psychcentral. Or I'm sorry. Please check out the podcast at psychcentral.com/notcrazy or your favorite podcast player. All right, we're going to pop up the first question right now.
Hey! So David Taylor asks, what can I do to stop my psychosis?
It's a challenging question. And I want to first state unequivocally that if I had the answer to this question, I would be world famous. I would be wealthy, because it's not going to be a simple answer. The quick answer, of course, is that you need to see a medical professional. Sometimes I think that people forget that mental illness, it has illness right in the name. It's an illness, and illnesses tend not to get better because we try really hard or because we work really hard. Illnesses get better when we seek medical intervention. And Lisa and I talk about this a lot, where people are like, well, but it's my personality or it's my brain. And I don't I don't want to surrender that to the medical establishment. And listen, as somebody who lives with bipolar disorder, I completely understand that. But as somebody that's also over 40, I've started to have a lot of physical health issues as well. And at first I didn't want to go to a doctor for physical health issues because I might have to admit that I was getting old, but I didn't get any better. And when I went to the doctor for, back pain or knee pain, the doctor told me what to do. I still had to do it. I had to go to the doctor. I had to take the advice. And now I am more physically fit, making better decisions because I have that information. Mental illness is exactly the same way. Take every opportunity that you can to be as well as you can and enlist the help of as many people as you can, including the medical establishment. Lisa, I know you have stuff to add to this.
Oh, well, actually, no, I don't really have stuff to add to this. I think psychosis it's pretty definitive. You're going to need to go see a doctor. People ask us a lot of questions about various aspects of mental illness, and they'll say things like, well, what can I do to decrease my anxiety? What can I do to cheer up? Things like that. But that's a pretty clear-cut one. You're not going to be able to talk yourself out of psychosis.
I love it, Lisa, when one of us makes like a little mistake and you said, people ask us all the time, how can I increase my anxiety?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm like,
I did it the other way, but you knew that.
You can be live on the Mighty. That'll do it.
Through a pandemic, that'll help.
Yeah. Be locked in your house during a pandemic. David, thank you so much for answering the question, but please.
And good luck.
Seek the help.
It's a hard road, but
you can absolutely do it. We absolutely believe in you. I did it. We can. Awesome.
Gabe did do it. He really did.
All right. Are we excited for the next question, Lisa?
Absolutely.
All right. Remember, you can ask your questions in the comments section, and we will get to as many as you can, as many as we can. Are you ready? Next question, please.
All right. Dev asked, do you think that I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Do you think that meditation can help to decrease anxiety at this time when you always fear of your job security?
Yeah. So this is the problem that I think that we get into as a society. My first response is like, do you think meditation can help decrease anxiety? It's like, no, you absolutely need to go to therapy and get medical help and address your mental health issues and all of those things. Every last one of those things is true. You should absolutely address your anxiety in therapy, and you should address your anxiety through just any number of medical methods. But that's not what you asked. You asked specifically, do I think that meditation can help decrease anxiety? Yeah. Yes, of course I do. And the part what I was saying about here's the problem with society is that we always think that it's only one thing. We think that we have to find like one thing that'll work and we can only do one thing. I use dozens of methods to decrease my anxiety. Literal dozens, from all of the coping skills that I've learned in therapy, to going to therapy, to sitting quietly, to taking a break, to doing a chain analysis to figure out what I'm anxious about, to just going and sitting quietly in a corner and sipping a Diet Coke. All of these things have helped decrease my anxiety. And I imagine that many of these things will work for everybody. We really have to look at this, of course, holistically. And I think that's the problem that we get into. If you would have said, do you think that meditation is the only cure for anxiety and everything else is bullpucky? I would have been like, well, no, meditation is not a cure. But you specifically said, can it help decrease anxiety? Yeah, anything that works for you, and literally anything. Go bowling if that helps. Lisa, I know you have a lot to add to this.
Oh, again, not a whole lot, but yes, meditation has been proven to decrease anxiety for many people. If it works for you, you should absolutely do it. And I have personally known lots of people who use meditation to decrease their anxiety. Yeah, my husband occasionally uses meditation to decrease his anxiety. So yeah, it is absolutely a successful strategy for many, many people.
And you can imagine how much anxiety that you would have if you lived with Lisa.
There you go.
I mean, she literally drove me insane. Thank you, Deb, so much. All right, we're moving on to the next question. Thank you. Remember, you can put your questions in the comment section and we will answer as many as we can. All right, this one's from Toast.
Hey, you don't every day get a question from Bread. So this is exciting. So Toast, how to help husband acknowledge his diagnosis 4 times. I I'm assuming that means inpatient, 4 times inpatient hospital for psychosis and delusions, diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar, goes off meds right as he leaves the hospital.
These are some of the most challenging questions that Lisa and I get asked, because there's just, it's almost a quagmire to answer, because any direction that you go could in fact be helpful, but that same direction could also be harmful. And I use it like a truck stuck in the mud, right? It just, on one hand, if you can just move forward a little bit, that might be enough for the tires to grip and to pull you right out. It also might dig in deeper and make it harder for the tow truck to inevitably pull you out. You can tell that I spent a lot of time getting cars stuck in the mud, and you don't know if something's going to improve your situation or hurt it. So there's no way that I can ever give a complete answer to this question, except to say that there's a reason that your husband is going off the medication. And step one is to find out what that reason is and then try to address it. I think that sometimes in our rush to help, we say things like, why are you not taking the medication? How could you? You know you're going to get sick again. What's wrong with you? You need to stop this behavior. There is no good reason not to take that medication. And that tends to be like our entry point into the conversation. It would make anybody dig in their heels, be very defensive, and feel very much attacked. What I recommend is to sit your husband down, maybe in therapy, maybe with the help of a case manager, a peer supporter, a doctor, or even just a trusted friend, and say, hey, what's the issue? What is it that you don't like about the medications specifically? And how can we help address this? And then try to move forward in these tiny little baby steps, all the while reminding your husband of what happens when he doesn't take them, but in a polite way. Just remember the last time you chose to stop taking the medications, we ended up back in the hospital. And I think we can both agree that we don't want that to happen again, or, whatever they are. It's wording, and it's ever so slight, but often when we address this, we blame the person who stopped taking the medication. And there's better than average odds that their reasoning for not taking the medication is probably very reasonable. I'm not saying that makes it a good idea to do. In fact, it's probably not a good idea to do, but it's worth addressing that reason, both in that person's life, both in your relationship, and of course, addressing that reason medically. You'd be surprised how many people stop taking medication for something that would be very easily addressed if they knew that they had the support and the help and the resources to address that. I think that is often missed in the doctor's orders culture, or the do as I say culture, or that this is for your own good culture. And I think we do need to understand that it's gonna take a partnership to move past this. Lisa, what do you have?
That's an impossible question. It's really, really difficult. That's the kind of thing that if you had the perfect answer for it, you'd definitely be a gazillionaire. As Gabe said, as much as you can, try to partner with this person, figure out why they don't want to take the meds, see if you can address that specific reason, and try to be a friend or a partner in this, rather than the overarching mom or the overarching nag that has to make them take those meds, although that's really easy to get into. So try not to do that, and then ultimately, I've also found some success with, if you can try to make it as a personal favor. Say, look, I understand you don't want to take, after you've tried to address whatever reason is they don't want to take it for, I understand you don't want to take this. Can you do this for me? Just do this as a personal favor to me. Maybe that will be helpful depending on the relationship you guys have.
Lisa, I want to go all the way back to 2003. Are you excited?
Oh, the good times.
The summer of 2003. It was an exciting time. I have no idea what song was on the radio because, I was delusional and suicidal and ended up in a psychiatric hospital because you took me there. Now, yeah. I did get out. We weren't married. We were just casually dating each other. And you took me to the hospital. I got out of the hospital, and I remember you said to me, you're like, look, I will support you. I will help you. But if you stop taking your medication, I can't. It won't go through. And you said, I will do this for you if you do this for me. Can you talk about, I mean, how did you come up with that? Because I am your first bipolar ex-husband, right?
You are. And my favorite of all the bipolar ex-husbands. Yeah.
But no, I mean, sincerely, like what made you think of that? Because you were not a mental health advocate. This was, you were navigating this for the first time. You were navigating helping me, just like I was navigating learning that I had this diagnosis. So just how did you come up with this, and just explain it.
Well,
Use your words.
That was one thing that I didn't know if you wanted to say that. That is one thing that we did. That was a deal breaker for me. I said, we're together, we're dating. I'll help you with this. I'm willing to help you handle all, because there's a lot to do after you get out of the hospital. There's a lot of, what's the word? Errands basically to run. There's just a lot of little details to manage. And I said, yes, I will help you do this, but you have to take your meds. And if you don't, I'm out. And I know that seems cruel. People don't necessarily like to be given an ultimatum, but try to make it like a nice ultimatum, like hey, we're in this together. Let's work together, do this together. It's a partnership. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you do have to look out for yourself. And if it comes down to it, if you are not going to do this part, if you are not going to help yourself, I got to go.
I want you to know, and I want the audience to know, I never saw it as an ultimatum. I saw it as, one, boundaries. Lisa was letting me know the rules of engagement before we ever got started. And two, I also sort of saw it as like a deal that we struck. Mm-hmm. Like if Lisa said, hey, here's the deal. I will help you move, but under no circumstances will I lift furniture. I'm not carrying furniture. And so that's just, if you ask me to help furniture, I am out. If you ask me to move furniture, I'm out. I will leave. That's not going to happen. I'll carry your little light stuff. I'll help you set up your kitchen. And finally, when it's all over, I want pizza. I would not say, wow, Lisa gave me an ultimatum. She told me that if I asked her to help carry furniture, that she would leave. Wow. And then she demanded pizza. Like that's not what happened there at all. And I really do look at it in the same way as when I got out of the hospital. I don't feel that you were demanding or gave me an ultimatum or were mean. You were quite candid with me and honest. And there's a little more to that story that I think is valuable that we get out there. Lisa also said that she would help me make sure that I found the correct medication. So often people,
and that took a while. It took a long while.
Yeah, it took almost 4 years. And so often people are told, well, just be med compliant and you'll be fine. Med compliant. Just be med compliant and you'll be fine. Of course, that's just missing all kinds of words. One, being med compliant isn't enough. If all you had to be was med compliant, everybody would be well. Just every doctor in America would prescribe you M&Ms. You'd have to eat 2 M&Ms in the morning, 2 M&Ms at night. You would be med compliant on the M&Ms, and boom, all the illnesses would go away. There's words missing. You have to be med compliant on the correct medications. And then those medications have to not like mess you up more, right? You can't have side effects. You can't have sexual dysfunction, weight gain. I mean, just you can't sleep for 22 hours a day. You've got to find whole health wellness, right? So every time I came to Lisa and I was like, I don't like these medications, Lisa would say, why not? And she would help me put into words the problem I was having.
Specifics are very important. It's not enough to say, I don't like the side effects. What specific side effect? And not, I don't know how graphic I can be, but not even just, I don't like the sexual side effects. Yeah, but what specific sexual side effects? Yeah. So as much as you can nail it down, the better.
And then we took that straight to the doctor, and I was able to resolve the majority of them.
Yeah.
Again, it took a long time. Sometimes people hear this and they're like, oh, well, Gabe went to the doctor twice and he was fine. No, 4 years. It took a long time. And I was so fortunate to have, Lisa's help and my family's help and friends' help. I mean, I was really, very fortunate to have such a strong support system. But I just want to make it clear that so often when people aren't taking their meds, we lay that blame 100% on the patient, as if nobody else is involved, as if there's not a pharmaceutical industry, a doctor, therapy, hospitals. Like we're all in this together until there's failure. Then it's the patient's fault. And we've got to get away from that kind of thinking. I'm not saying that the patient has no agency or even blame, but it's fascinating that success is always credited to the medical establishment and failure is always given to the patient 100% of the time. that's not fair. I personally don't think that's fair. And there's better than average odds that perhaps your loved ones are feeling that way, and they feel that you're just another person telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And
which everybody else is already doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also just want to say one more thing, which is that meds are really difficult and it's hard to find the right one. And there are a lot of them. And if it were as simple as here's this prescription, go home, you're fine now, we wouldn't need doctors. We'd just have vending machines. You just tell it what it is, and then they would spit something out at you and you'd be done. So it can take a really long time to find the right med program. And even then it's a constant process of always monitoring and watching and seeing what happens and what changes and what happens. And it's just, it's not an easy thing to do, but it obviously can be done. Gabe and I are both proof of that. And I also have to give some props to Gabe. You never stop taking your pills. And that was the number one thing people said to me is, oh, they all stop. Everybody stops taking. He never did. You always kept at it.
I want to give a big shout out to Joelle Marie, who one is I know her. She's very, very cool. She's an awesome advocate. And she says, okay, but vending machine snacks are great. Thank you, Joelle. You are awesome. All right, Lisa, I think we've talked this to death. Okay. Are you ready for the next question?
Absolutely.
Remember, put all of your questions in the comments and we will get to as many as we can over the next hour. So thank you. Thank you. Remember, write them in the comments. All right, Lisa, it's all you.
All right. And our next question is, I have panic disorder and it's highly stressful because I fear having a panic attack in public or in front of others. What can I do to bring that anxiety down? And what do you suggest if I do have one in public? I cannot read today. So what do you suggest I do if I have a panic attack in public? This is an excellent question and a topic of an upcoming podcast. The thing that I always thought was really difficult about panic disorder, especially for you, Gabe, was that at a certain point, you're not afraid of the activity anymore. You're not afraid to go to work or to go to a play or to go to a movie or to go to the party. You're not afraid of that. You're afraid of having a panic attack. So you're no longer actually afraid of the thing. You're afraid of the panic attacks themselves. And so it becomes this horrible cycle where you just have to keep having then you become more afraid and then you have more panic attacks. It's very difficult. And Gabe, I know this is something that you've worked on quite a bit.
I once again, Lisa always comes off great in these things because I end up feeling bad and just like gushing and thanking her a whole bunch. There's many, many things that Lisa did well, but things, now that a lot of time has passed, you can really see sort of the ripple effect of the things that she really dug in her heels on. And I was afraid to go a lot of places because of having a panic attack. I was terrified of having a panic attack at a concert or a sporting event or a movie or a restaurant. So I was very content to just stay home. Like I was just going to stay home. I can order pizza. I can watch the sporting event on the television and I'm done with it. And, Lisa and I were married at the time and she decided that she didn't want to stay at home all the time. She wanted to be taken out. And so she made me go to these places. And on one hand, I thought she was mean. Like I don't mean that the way that it's coming out, but I was terrified. But, Lisa was like, look, I don't want to spend the rest of my life inside. We're in our mid to late 20s and we're social people. And look, she made me. That's all I'm going to say. She made me do it. And the successes greatly outranked the failures. They did. We definitely left, expensive.
We left
concerts.
More than one thing that we had paid a lot of money on tickets for because Gabe had a panic attack.
Yeah. And that's a bummer, but I lived. And
well,
Lisa,
it's just,
I know this. I have to say, one of the things that helped so much is that I started being more willing to go to these events and trying when Lisa said we can leave. And when Lisa said, look, if your panic attack is too bad, we will leave. Well, okay, what did I have to lose? I mean, I know I had the money to lose on some of these things, so that made it more difficult. And then we started working out like we did some really cool things. Remember when we used to scout? We used to go scout the venue, and we would figure out where we were going to sit. Yeah, we do recon. And like, for example, if we were going to go to a play, we would get tickets on on the end. That way, if I had a panic attack, I could get up and leave and Lisa could stay. All right, so far so good. So now I would have a panic attack. I would get up, and then again we would recon. There's a coffee shop across the street. There's a McDonald's around the corner. There's a lobby in which to sit. Just on and on and on. And I would lean over and I'd be like, I'm not feeling so great. Right, that's all I have. I'm not feeling so great. Lisa would say, okay, pat me on the, and I would get up and I would go to the location. It was almost like a fire drill for panic attacks. And the more recon we did, the more plans we had, the more research, the less panic attacks I had. And the few times that I had them, I would get up, I would go sit out in the lobby, and like 10, 15 minutes later, it worked so well. I felt so good. Nobody was mad at me. I calmed down. I took a deep breath. I'd go back in. These were amazing moments for me. And I still to this very day do it. It's just habitual now. And I don't sit with my back to a door because that's insane.
If at all possible, you try not to isolate yourself further, because the more you avoid situations, the worse the panic gets. And especially for you, Gabe, we found that if you could do something a couple of times, like after he'd been to the movie theater like 2 or 3 times, he didn't have near as many panic attacks there anymore because a lot of it was unfamiliarity. So once you got a little bit more used to doing stuff, the panic attacks would decrease. So if at all possible, try not to get stuck in that trap of not doing things because of the panic attacks. So the recon helped a lot. It's not always possible, but it did help a lot just because it was that uncertainty that seemed to make your anxiety so bad. And if at all possible, tell the people you're with about your panic attacks so that when it happens, they can be supportive of you. You don't want them to start thinking, and God forbid you're ever with strangers, because they start to think that, well, I shouldn't say it like that. That sounds too negative. But sometimes strangers might think there's something really wrong. They're thinking, oh my goodness, what's wrong with this man? Is he going to pass out? Is he having a heart attack? What's happening? So if you can have someone around you who understands what is happening and understands that it will pass, that you don't need to call 911 or anything like that, can be very, very helpful.
I want to address there's a few questions in there. Whoops, I keep kicking my computer. There's a few questions in there, and I want to address the what can I do to bring that anxiety down. And I have some tried and true things that work. One, go back to the whole story about like sitting in the lobby or sitting in a diner or coffee shop, etc. What I always try to do is sit alone. I try to go someplace and sit, like physically sit down. Sometimes I order a drink. Sometimes I just go and sit. And by drink, I mean, Diet Coke or water or coffee or something like that. This is not the time for alcohol. I order, either something cold or something hot because I like that tactile feel. And I sit down and I feel the coolness, or I feel the warmness. I watch other people. I take big, deep breaths. And I try to control my thoughts on don't beat myself up. Don't say, oh, I let Lisa down, or I let my wife down, or I let my friends down, or I wasted so much money. Like you now is not the time. You can worry about that later. And that really calms me down. I just, and then I just keep doing it. And then I wait. And one of the things that always ramped my anxiety, and it really ramped my anxiety up, was beating myself up over the fact that I had anxiety. It literally became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Cut yourself a break. Just cut yourself a break. It's like if you start sneezing, don't beat yourself up for sneezing. You can't help it. It's not your fault you're sneezing, or coughing, or if you have a runny nose, right? Don't judge yourself for having a runny nose. Your nose is just dripping stuff. That's not your fault, but there are things that you can do about it. Blow your nose, carry a Kleenex, that kind of thing. And I found that was really helpful. And it ties back to the, do the recon and make a plan so that you know where to sit, because running around trying to find that quiet place to sit can be dangerous. Finally, I always say this, Lisa knows it's coming. Sometimes the quiet place to sit is the bathroom. Many of my friends were like, wow, I don't know what Gabe ate, but he was in the bathroom for 20 minutes. And that's unfortunate. I'm not excited about it, but people tend to leave you alone. Nobody talks to you. Sometimes
people don't ask more questions.
Yeah, they don't ask follow-up questions. So it's not the greatest place. don't get me wrong, but it can be a fail-safe or a stopgap. I really wish you the best of luck, and I know that it sucks to have panic attacks in public, but fight through them. You can get through them. And again, Lisa, thank you. If you wouldn't have pushed me through it,
I was worried about that for you.
Yeah, I hardly ever have a panic attack in public, and that's allowed me to do so many cool things. I get to travel. I get to be a public speaker. I get to I get to go to restaurants and concerts and movies, and I get to experience life. And if it wasn't for Lisa's help, I would have missed out on all of that. So please engage your friends, explain it to them, help them, have them read up to it, and tell them what they can do to help you if you're not lucky to have somebody who already knows. I got lucky. She came pre-ready.
Well, and also obviously you want to think positively, but you need to accept that this is going to happen. Don't be thinking, oh no, this will never ever happen. I will never have a panic attack in public. Because that was one of the things we did that was a mistake at first.
Yeah.
We kept thinking, oh no, that's not going to happen. Well, then you weren't prepared. You weren't planning. You didn't have a plan for what would happen when it inevitably did happen. So it will happen. Just so try to be prepared for when it does. And then that eliminates a lot of the anxiety.
It's literally the fire drill. We have fire drills at work all the time. I can tell you that I have been in the workforce since I was 11 years old. Not one time in any job has there ever been a fire. Never. But in every job, we have a floor captain. We have to do fire drills 4 times a year. We have to go get counted. The alarm goes off. We have to stop what we're doing immediately. But that's no fires, like 30 years. I am thankful for all the places that made me go through a fire drill, because if there is ever a fire, I know who my floor captain is. It's Lisa.
Well, no, just the recon helped a lot.
It did. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Next question. Are you ready, Ms. Kiner?
All right. Next question. Does mental illness cause emotional eating?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Hard.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to tell them how I used to weigh 550 pounds or should I wish I had a picture.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah. You know how if you read the list of medication side effects, it will always, inevitably, they always say weight loss. Yeah. Never once did I get that side effect. Always with the weight gain, always. And of course, yeah, like many Americans, and many people with mental illness as well, I eat when I'm sad or when I'm happy or when I'm bored or when I'm excited. So yeah. It's difficult to take your emotions out of eating. It's not something I have succeeded in doing. Gabe, of course, has had much more success. He used to weigh over 500 pounds and look at him now. But yeah, I understand. I don't have any magic answer for you, but I really understand. It is a real problem. It's really difficult.
So first I want to validate that yes, mental illness can cause emotional eating. But I also want to back it off and say that I really think that almost everybody in America has emotionally eaten at some point. So in this way, we're very normal. I did it a lot more than the average person, but we all watch sitcoms and you see the person break up with their significant other and they immediately start eating Ben and Jerry's, right? That's emotional eating. But let's remove all of that. Let's talk about other emotional eating that we have in our culture. Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, birthdays, anniversaries. This is all emotional eating. Just because we're not eating to survive anymore. We've decided to celebrate with food. So the emotion is a very positive emotion. It's Lisa's birthday. We're going to have her favorite cake. Yay. And then we blow candles out on the cake and we all eat the cake. That, everything's a spectrum. That is emotional eating. And we all have that. Now, I know what you're talking about is when I weighed 550 pounds, it's clearly not because I was celebrating Lisa's birthday too much. But the reason that I point that out is because I feel that the crux of my eating disorder was trying to feel something. It's when I look at the foods that I binged on, it's not surprising what they were. I used to eat a whole sheet cake. Well, what does a sheet cake remind you of? A sheet cake reminds you of a birthday. How does a birthday make you feel? Happy, special, rewarded, connected. So it's not a surprise. The foods that I was eating emotionally or binging on, they're the foods that made me feel better. I just want to let you know that one, it is a normal thing. And two, one of the things that I found to fight it, and I'm not perfect. I want to be very, very clear. I am not perfect. I absolutely still eat emotionally because I am a human. But one of the things that I found was replacing replacing those responses. It used to be that when I was sad and I wanted to cheer up, I had cake or pizza, or I went, I binged on food because I had the negative emotion and I needed a positive emotion to overwhelm it. And that's what I needed. That's what I needed so desperately. And what I chose was food. This was food. And that was bad. So I replaced it with things. So now when something exciting happens, I replace it with something much, much, much healthier. And it's different for every person. I may celebrate with a Diet Coke. Just, yay, I did it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a Diet Coke. I celebrate with watching my favorite television show. I celebrate with calling up Lisa and bragging that I did it. I celebrate with having a party, but having only healthy foods. I read a book. I buy myself a new shirt. Now, you got to be careful because you don't want to replace emotional eating with emotional spending, but it's all things in moderation, right? It's replacing that overwhelmingly negative with something overwhelmingly positive. And if you're lucky, you can find emotionally positive things that aren't rooted in food. And that's what I was able to do, 90% of the time. And the other 10% of the time, I still have issues. So I just want you to know that it is possible. I believe in you. And one of the things that very, very helped is the last thing that I'll say on the whole subject is Lisa took me to an eating disorder support group. I know it all comes back to Lisa. Lisa took me to an eating disorder. Doing that on purpose. Yeah. You took me to an eating disorder support group. Mm-hmm. And that eating disorder support group allowed me to get hints and tips from other people.
It was a lot more helpful than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. But one of the recommendations that I got that I always brag up is they told me to see a nutritionist. I said, why do I need to see a nutritionist? It's clearly not a nutrition issue.
Well, then you feel like, why do I need to see a nutritionist? So she can tell me not to eat the whole sheet cake? Gee, thanks. I couldn't have figured that out without her help. But
I went.
Yeah.
And once again, another mark it off and that Gabe was wrong. Gabe doesn't understand what he's doing. And Gabe needed to keep an open mind. Because one of the things that the nutritionist did on day one, a very nice woman, is she held up cards. And she would say, okay, I'm going to hold up a card with two foods. You tell me which food has less calories. That's all I want you to do. That's it. So she held up a muffin and a donut. And I said, the muffin has less calories. Well, spoiler alert, the muffin has 3 times as many calories as the donut. I was like, how on earth? And the answer is a lot of us we think we understand nutrition, but we don't. When donuts used to be all the rage and everybody was eating donuts, and then donuts got a bad rap and everybody's like, donuts are bad for you. So they replaced them with muffins. Muffins were worse for you, but they weren't the donuts, and that's what everybody was talking about. So, and we see this same thing play over and over and over again. The average protein bar that's on the market, it has more calories than a candy bar. Well, now you can argue it has protein, and that may well be the case, but just because it has protein or granola or whole grains in the title doesn't mean that it's necessarily any better than a candy bar. Everybody just says that candy bars are bad for you, and everybody says that granola is good for you. Listen, granola coated in sugar is not the granola that people are talking about when they say that granola is good for you. I learned all of these things. I learned how to read a nutrition chart. I learned how to read a BMI chart because I believe the BMI chart, the body mass index. And yeah, it turns out that that's just mostly BS. I just learned a lot, and I was able to get my questions answered. And that really, really, really helped me in just so many ways.
No, you think you understand nutrition because we all feel like it's not that hard. It's more complicated than you think. I was surprised at how useful the nutritionist was.
Lisa,
Gabe.
Are you ready for the next question?
I am.
All right.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Yay!
All right. Mark Evans asks, how do I get over a panic attack? I called ambulance. They said it was anxiety. I never felt that way before. I've had panic disorder and healthy anxiety 7 years now. I've never been that way, and now I'm scared. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. That sounds like it must have been really horrible.
Mark, I first want to say, obviously, I'm going to echo all of Lisa's sentiments. It's a horrible thing. Any illness is bad. I don't think I need to convince anybody of that. But I'm surprised at how often nobody wants to just look somebody in the eyes and say, that sucks. Being sick sucks. This is a sucky thing that happened to you, and I'm sorry that you experienced it. And I want to say that. Everything is on a spectrum. And we tend to think that whatever our previous worst anxiety was, that's the high end of the spectrum. But that's not how spectrums work, unfortunately. Just because we've only been to here doesn't mean that there's not here. It sounds like you had an extraordinarily bad panic attack. And there's no rhyme or reason. You didn't do anything wrong necessarily. You didn't maybe you weren't triggered. Sometimes it just happens and we don't know why. Sometimes we know why. Sometimes we see something or experiencing something that's very triggering, and we can connect those two and think, oh wow, I was very triggered. I wish I would have had some warning. But sometimes we don't. And I've been in recovery for almost 15 years with bipolar and anxiety, but that doesn't mean that I don't have panic attacks. And just the other day I had an extraordinarily bad panic attack. It was probably the worst one that I'd had in several years. And I thought, wow, when am I going to be done with this? And the answer is I'm never going to be done with it. And while that's a bummer, I think it is important to understand. I don't want you to be scared that it's coming back. We talked about earlier in the live that being scared of a panic attack causes more panic attacks than whatever you were doing. Now, I know that's easier said than done. It's like telling a child not to be afraid of the dark or that there's nothing under the bed. They don't believe you. They feel like it's there. And this is one of the biggest problems with anxiety, right? It's feelings. You feel so very scared. Now is when we need to apply some logic. First, you said that this was the first time in 7 years. And while that may be scary that it's the first time in 7 years, you also have to give yourself credit. If you were a football team or a soccer team or a baseball team, and this was the first time you lost in 7 years, yeah, that would feel really cruddy. But it also mean that you had like a 7-year undefeated streak. Like that's world record breaking. Give yourself credit for that. Reset. All of the things that you did to stay healthy for the past 7 years, keep doing. It's definitely worth discussing this with a therapist or a peer supporter or your friends and your family and support. It's completely understandable that it would throw you off your game. Any illness would. But give yourself the credit for a 7-year undefeated streak. Know that this happens to everybody and keep working forward. Do the small steps and all the things that you were doing before, keep doing. If you were going to therapy and maybe you stopped because it's been 7 years, I did that for a while. I'm like, I've been fine for a long time. I didn't go to a therapist for several years. Then I realized that I needed to go back, revisit some of those steps that you did 7 years ago to get started on your undefeated streak. And in a sports analogy, they would call that back to basics. All of these things are very, very vital, but I'm right there with you, Mark. It's happened to me and it will no doubt happen again. And I understand how scary it can be. But we're in the same boat and we're going to paddle upstream and we're going to be just fine. Lisa, anything to add?
Oh no, I think that was wonderful advice, Gabe. And yeah, I can imagine that was just a really bad day for you. And that's terrible.
Hey man, we all get through bad days. We have a 100% success rate at getting through bad days.
The next day does come.
Will continue. Thank you so much, Mark. And of course, thank you for asking the question. I know it's tough to ask questions like that, right, Lisa? I mean, just admitting that you had a really bad anxiety and panic attack publicly, having the gumption to ask a stranger. It takes guts. It really does. And I all of the people who ask questions, thank you so much for being willing to ask questions in a public forum, because you're not just helping yourself, you're asking all the people that aren't ready to ask a question yet, because these questions are what's that joke that you make a lot of times? These questions are like roaches. If you see one roach with a whole bunch of roaches, if one person has the question, a lot of people have the question. So yeah. Thank all of you for being just incredibly brave, sincerely. All right, you ready for the next question?
Sure. We got one more?
Here we go.
Okay, Debbie Wills asks, how do you deal with family who are always watching over you and treat you like you're manic if you get upset and then not talk to you? Gabe has addressed this question before. So, does it help if they tell you to just calm down, Gabe? Does that help?
No. So the first thing that I want to say, Debbie, is this is not uncommon. Unfortunately, people believe a lot of the stereotypes, and everybody, especially in their families, they get sort of pigeonholed into something. I always tell the story when I was a teenager. I lived with my grandparents, and I drank milk with every meal. Like every single meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I had a glass of milk. Now I was 16, I was 17, I was 18, I was 19. Now all of these years later, literally 25 years later, I have done so much in the past 25 years, but in my grandma's mind, I still drink milk with every meal. I don't drink milk with every meal anymore. Grandma, I'm a grown up. I have matured, but my grandmother believes it. So I just want to point that out there, because it's possible, Debbie, that the reason that they're doing this has more to do with family dynamics and less to do with stigmatizing or discriminating you against your mental illness. Now, that said, that doesn't make it okay, and we want to fix it. We want to move past that. Just like I want my grandmother to stop wasting money on milk and forcing me to feel guilty and drink milk at every single holiday when I go visit her. I want to understand that she's not forcing me to drink milk because she thinks I'm a bad person or because I'm unhealthy. She's forcing me to drink milk because in my grandmother's mind, I will always be a teenager. That said, I find that the best time to address these things is not in crisis. And when I say crisis, I don't mean like your mental health crisis. I mean like a family crisis. Everybody always wants to bring this stuff up when everybody's fighting. Just, oh, I think you're manic. I am not. And how could you say that? Well, you're always manic. Everybody's yelling at each other. Nobody's listening. It's just like a free-for-all of emotions and passive aggressive tendencies and finishing arguments that started, I don't know, a decade ago. It never seems to get very far. I find that it's best to wait until, it's a good spell. You just got done shopping with your mom. You and your dad played catch. You just had a good family dinner. It's the finale of your favorite TV show, and you're all just sitting around talking about like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's amazing. Then say, I want to talk to you about some plans for when you feel that I'm having a side effect. And so, I'm not judging anybody. It always devolves into us yelling at each other, and I feel bad, and I imagine that you feel bad. And I do believe that you're trying to help me, but I'm just bringing it up because the way that you're doing it, it's not very helpful to me. And I believe that you want to do what's helpful, but it makes me feel really bad. It's the perfect moment for an I statement. And don't accuse them. Don't yell. Don't get angry. Just talk about what you would like them to do instead. And if they get defensive or angry, take a deep breath. See, this is the good part about you bringing it up. You're mentally prepared. You're ready. You're ready to discuss it. And just keep the conversation going. Talk about ideas and plans and everything that you can do to make this better in the future. And then the first time it happens, if your family is anything like my family, they will fall woefully short of that plan that you made. But now you've got something. You can say, whoa. Remember when we talked about this, Mom? Remember the other day when we all talked about it, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, friend, and just that's so much better than, how dare you? Why are you yelling at me? And then they yell back, and just it's productive. Now, I always like to say, it sucks that we both have to have an illness. We both have to suffer from a side effect of that illness. We both have to live with the illness. Oh, and be the ambassador for the rest of our families. That's great. I wanted to be an ambassador for the illness that I was stricken with through no fault of my own. Yeah, that's where we find ourselves. But we can't control other people. I can't make your family be nice to you. I can only give you advice that you can try. And I think this is really good advice. And, not for nothing, have them watch this section of this live and say, hey, I think this guy is making a lot of sense. Or have them watch this section of this live and say, I think this guy is dead wrong. I don't agree with this. I would prefer you do this. And let them hear that other people are trying to manage their families as well. Just no matter what, let them know that this is coming from a place of solidarity and family love and compassion and keeping everybody, well. So often these things just devolve into everybody yelling at one another. And that's just such a bummer, because I don't believe that any family or friend group wants this to happen. I think we're just stuck in this circular pattern. And I think that this might be a way to get out of it. And when it works, you will be a hero. And who doesn't want to be the hero?
Nice advice. Families do get stuck in that same pattern where you always have to fill the same role, even though it's 15, 20, 30, 40 years later, and you're not 12 years old anymore.
What always cracks me up is that Lisa's parents call her Lisey.
Yeah, they
because
do.
that's what they called you when you were a toddler. Now, I'm not going to give your age, but Lisa's a grown woman. I mean, you're a trained physicist,
Yeah.
for Pete's sake. I mean, you
Yeah.
have accomplished so much in your life. And whenever your mom and dad are in a room, hey, Lisi,
Yeah.
can you hand me that? Your dad called you Lisi Weesy Poo the other day.
I saw my parents yesterday, and I went to cut a cake, and my mom went to come and help me. And I said, Mom, I'm an adult woman. And she said, no, 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 you're always going to be 7 years old with those braids. So even though things have changed, especially with family, people don't see that it's changed. They see you as being stuck forever in wherever they're keeping you. So it might not necessarily be a mental illness thing.
It's important to just see things from all points of view, because it's so easy. It's so easy to get bogged down in, they're only doing this because I have bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia, just anxiety, whatever. I'm not saying that there's not an element of that. I'm saying that it can be two things. It can be partially a misunderstanding of your illness and them responding incorrectly. It can be partially family dynamics, which are always going to get you. And it can be even a third thing. It's never so clean. And it helped me a lot make up with my family and my friends when I realized that they weren't necessarily being malicious. What they did might have seemed malicious, felt malicious, or caused me trauma. I'm not denying that at all. But it helped me to understand that I didn't understand what was happening to me. How can I expect them to understand what is happening to me? And ultimately, it's empowering to explain what is happening to you. I get a lot of pushback, and people are like, well, why do I have to explain my illness to people? Well, don't you want them to learn it from you? I mean, I would rather people learn what it's like to live with bipolar disorder from people with bipolar than from doctors or researchers or PhDs. Their information is fantastic, but it doesn't answer the question of what does it feel like to have bipolar disorder. It's excellent information, but I want the patient voice to be out there, so much so that, well, I'm on a live show right now. So, just consider it an honor to be able to explain your own journey to those who are around you. Lisa and I have literally made a career on it. So, step into the advocacy game and start with your friends and family. It's very empowering to describe the world as you see it to other people. I recommend this a lot. We're running low on time. We've got maybe 5 minutes left. Before we get to the very, very end, please, if you like what we say, if you don't like what we say, check out the Not Crazy podcast. You can hit it up on psychcentral.com/notcrazy. You can find it wherever podcasts are. It's really just everywhere. It's a really cool podcast, and I guarantee that Lisa and I will say something that you like, and I guarantee that Lisa and I will say something that you hate, and we love that. Please hit us up at show@psychcentral.com if you disagree with us. We try to answer everything, and we are the people who read the email where people tell us that we're wrong. We don't always change our opinions. I'm not saying that we do, but we always respect it and we appreciate it. And a lot of times we like to have people on our show who disagree with us. We find that absolutely fascinating to give a platform to the other side, because, frankly, we're a couple of like middle-aged Midwesterners. We can only experience mental illness through our lenses. So we love having other people on. You can only see
through your own eyes.
Yeah, we can only see through our own eyes. So check it out. It's Not Crazy Podcast. Also, somebody asked where to get the book, Mental Illness is an Asshole. You can get it on GabeHoward.com. It's a really, really cool book. I am obviously very proud of it. Look how thick it is. It's so thick. If you buy it from me, I will sign it. And
send stickers.
Oh, I will send stickers. I don't have any available. All right. Are you ready for the last question, Lisa?
Okay, last question.
We head on out.
Okay. Let's see a good one here.
All right. You ready?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I was reading. Yeah. Hi, I am taking medications about my panic disorder and I have some borderline traits. Can you give some tips about how to manage my anger and how to go out of the black and white thinking? Another $1 million question.
Lisa, you don't give yourself credit enough. Lisa,
I have a lot of problems with anger.
You have a lot of problems with both anger and black and white thinking.
I do.
And this is the power let me finish. This is the power of seeing things from another person's perspective. Lisa is currently not working as a scientist. She's no longer a physicist, but she is a trained physicist. Like that's legit. Yeah. It's not like some joke. I'm not setting up. Her background is very.
It is
scientific.
What I went to school for.
Yeah, and you know who needs to think black and white to literally cure illnesses and save people's lives and take the death rate in this country, or the average lifespan in this country, from 21 when the country started to 76 now, and it keeps going? Scientists. Nobody wants to see a doctor that says, that'll probably work.
Could go either way. I don't know. Pluses and minuses.
So I want to give you just a ton of credit of what I have learned from Lisa, that in some cases, black and white thinking is very powerful, and it's a superpower. It is a superpower to understand that a fact is a fact and a fiction is fiction, and there's no wiggle room for that. And it can literally save lives. It's how we've come up with all of these treatments and medications, and the scientific method has been very good to the mental health community in the last decade. So like hardcore. So I'm going to amend your question just slightly and say, how can I get out of anger and black and white thinking in social situations? Because that's where it really bites Lisa in the butt. Lisa, what are some mechanisms that you have to get out of black and white thinking and to help control your anger? And I know all of them, but I want to hear you say it.
Both of these things are something I struggle with. I do find anger to be much more comfortable. And especially, I don't know anything about your history, but you've had mental illness, you've had to deal with all that, the stigma, as a woman in America, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot to be angry about. And when people say, oh, don't be angry, it's annoying and makes me angry. But anyway, so I think probably the thing that is that has helped a lot is just trying to see other people's point of view, or even just listening to other people's point of view. Even if you know in advance that you're going to disagree, it can help to temper your own thinking, to just have that voice of something else in your mind. And of course, Gabe is always constantly telling me tell me that I need to reframe. And every time he says reframe, he actually makes the box. You need to reframe.
The other thing that Lisa does that is, and she does this only works with close friends and family, but one of the things that Lisa learned on, no, not that method. That works with anybody. The thing that I'm going to say, this method only works with close friends and family, and because it can be difficult to do to strangers, because you may come off needy, and I like to, or annoying, et cetera. And I like to be very, very aware of that. But one of the things that Lisa does, especially when she starts to get angry, is she will say, "Are you mad at me?"
Yeah.
And
that was a therapist advice.
Yeah, and so we'll be talking, Lisa's getting ramped up. Sometimes I can tell, sometimes I can't. I'm not perfect. And Lisa will say, "Are you angry with me?" And I'll say, "No." And she'll be like, "Oh." And you can see Lisa calm down immediately, because and I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. You are, of course, your own person, but I think that sometimes Lisa gets angry because she thinks that everybody else is angry.
Well, yeah, you have to respond.
Right. So Lisa's trying to fight fire with fire. The problem is because of her anxiety and because of, depression and maybe even or black and white thinking or a misunderstanding. In Lisa's mind, Gabe is not happy. So therefore, he must be angry. Mm-hmm. And this has caused a lot of issues along the way. So Lisa's like, well, I can tell Gabe's not happy. And she's right. Gabe is not happy. And she'll say, "Are you mad at me?" No.
That has been very helpful, because my own perceptions aren't that good sometimes, especially in social situations. I can't tell what other people are thinking. I can't tell how they feel. And I kind of think I'm mirroring my own feelings in them. So I'm angry. I assume they're angry too. And that has been very helpful. If you can count on the people around you, and again, this is probably only a close friends and family thing, if you can count on the people around you to tell you the truth.
All right, we have to head out of here. Our time is almost, actually, it's all done. Please go to sitecentral.com/notcrazy and check out our podcast. Gabe and Lisa are here on the second and fourth Tuesdays. Thank you, The Mighty, for having us here.
Thank you very much.
We will see everybody in a couple of weeks. Bye!
Bye!